And our speaker is from Gaza. He's a Palestinian American. He's lost many members of his extended family in the war that started in 2023. He is a senior resident fellow at the Atlantic Council, and specifically the Socroft Program for Middle East Security. He's appeared on all the major media networks since the war started. He's the head of an organization that he started called Realign for Palestine, designed to kind of get us out of the current unhelpful dialectic of my team versus your team and so forth.
Yes, I, on the one hand, sought connection with the Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian community through my work and my activism as part of the pro-Palestine community. It was not taboo to engage with Israelis. It was completely the norm. Like, Hebrew was being taught in schools up until the mid-90s, and that would cease to be the case. My uncles and half of Gaza, the joke in the 1990s was that Gazans occupied Israel because they basically worked in Israel. Half of Gaza was built by day laborers, and they weren't just Home Depot construction workers. I'm talking about folks involved in property, in industries, in factories, in agriculture, in every facet. These were actual bonds that people had. And like, that was something that I grew up hearing about. You know, I also grew up with the hope and optimism of Gaza had a short-lived airport that I flew into in the year 1999 and in the year 2000. Can you imagine even just uttering the word Gaza airport there? We ditched our Egyptian travel document and we got a Palestinian Authority passport. There was state institutions were being built. We got our landline. Our family got our first cell phone. Like, there were institutions, the Israeli control of. And I also remember the rise of Hamas and the rise of Islamism and the Islamization of the society. Gaza was historically, Palestinian society was historically quite secular. And over time, particularly when Hamas rose to power in the 1980s, there was very much so an Islamization agenda that rose along with that. But I also remember the breakdown of all of that and the violence that was associated with the Second Intifada and the Israeli bombardment and the checkpoints and the different expressions of the loss of Palestinian control and sovereignty and hope and optimism. In 2005 is when I came to the United States. I left 1 month before the withdrawal of Israeli settlements. I'll never forget, one of the last people that I saw was my uncle Riyad, who worked in Israel, my dad's youngest brother. We lived in a family building, as is typical in Gaza, where each uncle had a floor. And he said that, inshallah, the next year you'll be back, and I would have gone back to working in Israel, and Gaza will be a better place than when you left it. There was widespread ambition that the withdrawal would usher in a new era. The space, the physical space that was going to be opened up and freed up for people to live in, for industries, for commercial and agricultural activities, the return of Palestinian control and sovereignty. And unfortunately, that was very much so not the plan of somebody like Hamas that violated its commitment to joining the elections, which stipulated that you have to recognize Israel and you have to denounce violence. 10 years ago, I tried to build an internationally run, Israeli-approved airfield in the Gaza Strip. But that was really my first introduction to radical pragmatism, as far as putting aside your own ideology, thinking about what is achievable, thinking about what is attainable. I launched a US-based project called Project Unified Assistance. It was about two things. Number one is freedom of movement, freedom of access, which is something that I feel very strongly about, because that is a right that the Palestinian people in Gaza, in the West Bank, have long suffered from not having. In part because of Hamas, in part because of Israel, in part because of Egypt, in part because of a variety of circumstances. But number two was that it was an effort to stabilize Gaza through humanitarian aviation. And for this, I worked for a philanthropic organization for a period of roughly 9 years. Malaria, deworming, poverty alleviation, neglect of tropical diseases. And I had sort of moved on from Gaza because I was really disillusioned by the behavior of the pro-Palestine community during my airport work. A lot of people did not support it. It's going to make Israel look good. Oh, things are so bad in Gaza, you're going to empty the land of its people, and therefore you're going to fulfill the Zionist agenda by pushing Palestinians out. It's almost better to leave them there against their will. Needless to say, the first Trump administration frustrated my efforts. I'm not here to talk Trump, but I'm just saying that they had different priorities. And so I moved on, and I did do work in Africa with malaria deworming issues. And then I got a degree in intelligence and national security. I wanted to work for the State Department. I got a top secret clearance. I was ready to go. I got a job at the State Department that combines both national security as well as diplomacy. I was horrified by what I saw on that day. The taking of women and children and the elderly as hostage and calling that resistance, because my once beautiful Gaza that I grew up in actually respected women's spaces. I remember I came from a very devout Muslim family, and I remember vividly how culturally, from a religious point of view, from just the social values of the Palestinian people, that was something that would have never happened just even 20 years ago. And I was also equally horrified by the dehumanization of the entirety of the people of Gaza as all terrorists. They're all Hamas. Kill them all. Like the incitement against the Palestinian people as being all deserving of the incoming wrath. In 2023, where both of my childhood homes where I had grown up were hit by Israeli airstrikes and destroyed, and with my mom's family that was basically wiped out. There were 29 folks and all my aunts and uncles in our house in Rafah in southern Gaza was fully destroyed. Over 14 children who were under the age of 9, babies as young as 3 and 4 months old, shredded to bits and pieces. My aunts and uncles, over 6 individuals over the age of 65 killed that day. I choose not to be hateful. And that's not kumbaya, that's not let's hold hands and everything's gonna be fine. That's really hard, difficult work that I'm choosing to do to honor the legacy of my family members by breaking away from the vicious cycle of hatred, incitement, violence, revenge, rinse and repeat. So that, in that sense, I am like 1,000 trillion% pro-Palestine, and I always identify as such, and I want to reclaim what it means to be pro-Palestine. And so there's a narrative that I think can and has emerged. I have spoken with Palestinians, particularly on the ground in Gaza, who aspire, for example, to go back and working in Israel and having relationships with Israeli counterparts. I have spoken to Arab Americans here and Palestinian Americans and Muslim Americans who don't feel represented by the discourse as it has been unfolding. Alternatively and frequently, I've also spoken to a ton of Jewish Americans, liberal Zionists, alternate Zionists, post-Zionists, indifferent Zionists, Israelis, pro-Israeli folks, and that is being able to hold space for multiple truths. This is what I call radical pragmatism. It's meant to be a realignment of how we express solidarity, shifts in a way that abandons ideological purity tests of show me your credentials. Are you a Zionist? Are you for resistance? Because we understand that 7 million Jewish Israelis are not going anywhere, and neither are 7 million Palestinians either. If we can't point to Gaza and say this is the pride and joy and the jewel, the crown achievement of the Palestinian people, I strongly believe that there cannot be any successful efforts to significantly roll back the military occupation, to significantly move the needle in terms of the United States policy, Democrat or Republican, to significantly push the Palestinian national aspirations toward actually like being realized and being achieved. So that's why I feel that Hamas, for the time being, is not an expression of organic resistance. It is a nefarious organization that, by the way, some anti-Israel forces in Israel, anti-Palestinian forces in Israel, namely Netanyahu and others, have benefited from Hamas, have sought to leverage Hamas against the rest of the Palestinian national project.
I also, and another issue, like when we fled our houses because of the war from the north to the south, we left our houses. Then we got a phone call from people who stayed there, and they told me there are Hamas fighters who occupied your house. They took your house. And when we started to inquire about that, then it was too late because the house was bombarded because Hamas took our house as a shield without even taking our permission. Again, our life is really back to the early state of humanity, and this is all brought upon us because of a war that we did not decide to take. We have nothing to do with it. We used to have universities, we used to have gym, we used to have soccer fields, and that all been before October 7th. And when Hamas started its war against Israel and attacked Israel, they brought upon us all of this horrible situation, where we, in the early morning, we woke up and started to look for food. And at a time when there is no solar panel, there is no sun in Gaza, we don't have electricity that is enough to charge our phone. So it looks so much as the early stage of humanity. That this is the level that we were brought to.
So can you describe the challenges of life with Hamas still in control?
So I would bring up a story. I was walking by in Deir al-Balah, and then I saw a protest against Hamas. Civilians in Gaza were protesting. And I was just holding my phone in this way. I was holding my friend, and Hamas security thought that I'm filming. And when they thought that I'm filming, they right away thought that I'm involved in this demonstration. I'm encouraging for a protest movement against Hamas. They took me, they kidnapped me, and I was interrogated and physically, and I was tortured hard by Hamas. They hanged me to the ceiling and they tortured me. I also, and another issue, like when we fled our houses because of the war from the north to the south, we left our houses. Then we got a phone call from people who stayed there, and they told me there are Hamas fighters who occupied your house. They took your house. And when we started to inquire about that, then it was too late because the house was bombarded because Hamas took our house as a shield without even taking our permission. If you express any point of view that contradicts with their thinking, the easiest thing that they can do is beat you hard to break your legs. The problem is that Hamas now, they still have AK-47. Nobody wanted to strike Hamas out of this power. Everybody was focusing more on the heavy military strength of Hamas, not the current policing power. And what we need more than AK-47 to crack down on people and to force people and to scare me and scare many other people and to coerce people into listening to Hamas. So this is, Hamas is not yet done.
So I stand with the people of Iran. I may have my own doubts about how the United States is pursuing this war, but I very much so am supportive of the end game of getting rid of this regime for the sake of regional stability and peace between Palestinians and Israelis. The goal of Western activists and advocates should be to amplify pragmatic, meaningful calls to action that actually positively impact the lives of the Palestinian people. That's the privileged role of a Western activist, whether they be white, black, Latino, Arab, Muslim, Palestinian American, etc.
Please join me in giving a really warm thanks to them.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much. Delighted to be here. Thank you.